Come on, don't slow roll us.
Woo! Oh!
Nice.
Unbelievable.
That is beautiful.
That's just the way we drew it up in the playbook right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And gotta start flipping cards over.
See, you gotta have faith. Just get Taxian Probe. Don't pay the blue. They might have a daze. You can't.
Sure.
No, you can't be scared.
That was
You don't
good.
show up with 0 land in your deck if you're scared. You could be crazy, but you're not scared. You're definitely not scared.
Hello everybody, this is X with DankMTG. In this video we'll be covering a legacy deck that I've had lots of fun playing. As the title implies, this is Oops All Spells, or sometimes just called All Spells. This channel did primarily focus on Modern, and we do want to venture into other formats. Legacy is one of those. If you're familiar with Legacy, awesome. Anyone wondering? Legacy is a format that includes further sets of Magic as far back as its conception until today. Even sets such as supplemental ones, such as Commander Precons and Conspiracy, are included. It's really seen as a premier way to play Magic, and it's not really for the weary. Like most formats, Legacy does have some stigma to it, if you will. Some examples include the decks are too expensive, or decks are just too degenerate and win as soon as turn 1. However, this isn't too much of a format explained video. It's a deck tech, so let's move on. With that being said, this deck does not cost too much, well, in terms of legacy, but can usually win as soon as turn 1. All Spells is a deck that does not play any lands, hence the name. Yeah, who would have thought? As you may have noticed from the deck list, there are no lands, but instead spells. We use this to our advantage and win, but we'll go on to how we do that real shortly. Let's see what our objective is. The goal of this deck is to play one of our 8 combo enablers. Because of that, we play a set of Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer. Both of these cards, for almost all intents and purposes, are seen as the same card. These cards have the ability to mill a player until they reveal land. We use this to our advantage by targeting ourselves and milling a whole library to win. But before we learn how we win, how do we cast one of our enablers if we have no lands? Just because we have no lands doesn't mean we don't have mana. In fact, the majority of our deck is devoted to mana producing cards. We play the Zendikar Rising modular lands, Agadeem's Awakening, and Turntimber Symbiosis, but not the faces, rather the other sides as lands. In any other zone than the battlefield, these cards are seen as their front side and will not be counted as a land. This gets under our rogue's abilities. Now, 8 lands is better than none, but that can't be it. Well, you're correct to think that, and it is true. Because of this, and to add more consistency, we play other mana producing sources. We play 4 of each Spirit Guides in Elvish and Simian, some mana rocks in form of 4 Lotus Petals and 2 Chrome Moxes, and we do also play rituals, being the classic Dark Ritual and its torment cousin, Cabal Ritual, and we're playing a set of each one. We have some cards that do help our consistency as well. Go ahead and call this our utility slots. From that, we do play a set of Summoner's Pact. This is a card we need. It is limited to only green creatures, but we can do a lot with that. I do want to express that any dead card can also be imprinted under Chrome Mox if need be. We usually use Summoner's Pact to find mana in form of Elvish Spirit Guide, or a card from the sideboard that we'll get onto later, or filter mana with the next card. We aren't affected by the Pact trigger because as long as we win the same turn we cast it, there won't be any trigger to worry about. The next card that I did mention that we'll be using to filter our mana with Summoner's Pact is Wild Cantor. The main purpose of this is to turn any of our Spirit Guide mana, whether it be Simian red or Elvish Spirit Guide being green, into black mana for a ritual or whatever we may need it to be. It is also viable to cast this turn 1 off one of our lands, then next turn untap and have it to be an additional source of mana on turn 2. The last noble card in terms of utility is Bridge from Below. This will keep our creature count up for the actual combo when it's in our graveyard. So let's go on to the actual combo. Moving on to the actual combo now, we've milled our whole library into our graveyard. How do we win? Our combo is we play 4 Narcomoebas in a deck, but the combo we only need 3 creatures. So if you draw a Narcomoeba, it's not the end of the world. Now if you draw 2, as long as you draw a Balustrade Spy, you can still win. With our 3 creatures on the battlefield and our library in our graveyard, we can now sack 3 creatures to our 1 of Dread Return. The creature that we actually target to reanimate with Dread Return is going to be our 1 of Thassa's Oracle. Its ability will check upon its enter the battlefield and win us the game, being that we had no library left. There's a common saying that anyone looks good against a punching bag, but against an actual opponent, the real skill is shown. That's exactly true, and it really extends into Legacy. And being that we're in Legacy, we have to be aware of what our opponent is playing and know how to play against it. Luckily, we have a lot of cards to ensure that we can combo off. This includes 4 Thoughtseizes. Now, it's kind of hard to not see the power of this card. Now we're also going to play 2 Cabal Therapies. This actually serves multiple purposes and is almost as good, if not better, than Thoughtseize in this deck. Of course, we can use it as hand hate, usually name something like a Force of Will, Force of Negation, or any other card to be aware of, such as Mind Break Trap. The flashback on this card is very crucial. The reason for this is that even if we don't have Cabal Therapy in hand, we can flash it back from the graveyard by sacking one of our Narcomoebas or any other creature we have and name any previously mentioned card. This is also where Bridge of Blow is helpful, so we don't lose creatures as we sacrifice them. Another interaction with Cabal Therapy is to target ourselves, put any combo piece that may be stuck in our hand, such as an Oracle or Dread Return, into our graveyard. If our opponent does have another way to interact with us, such as a Stifle or another Force, we can still fight through it with a 4 of Pact of Negation. Just like Summoner's Pact, Pact Trigger doesn't really apply if we can win before that triggers. This channel isn't too much into the history of decks, but with one like this, I do want to share how it evolved to what we have today. The deck was developed when Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer were created back in 2013, and originally our deck's game plan stayed the same. We played no lands but mana sources to cast one of our 8 rogues, then comboed off. Except back in 2013, there was no Zendikar Rising Lands or Thassa's Oracle. So how did we do it? We played other cards to help our consistency, such as Metamorphose, Tinderwall, and Street Wraith. But what's most interesting is how we went about winning. The original combo is just like today, except we reanimated Angel of Glory's Rise. With its ETB, would bring back all humans, and the 2 that we cared about the most was the one of Azami played in the deck, along with the one of Laboratory Maniac, or I'll be referring to as Labman going forward. We would then tap one of the 2 with Azami's ability. With the Labman's replacement effect, we'd win. The cool thing about this combo is if our opponent did want to respond by removing the Labman, we could tap the other creature to win. And if they still tried responding to that, we could tap an Undercity Informant. Moving forward, in 2015, the combo did change. It is still similar to the original one, and the deck list did stay very similar, except this time we're reanimating our one of Underworld Cerberus. After the creature did hit the battlefield, we would then sacrifice it to Cabal Therapy. We would name whatever we need to against our opponent, and the leave the battlefield effect of Cerberus would put our creatures back into our hands. Now with all our creatures in our hand, we would make enough mana with our Spirit Guides, filter one out to blue, then cast Labman, and with all our creatures still in our hand, we can cycle Street Wraith. It is important to note that this did technically use one less card, being that you didn't need Angel of Glory's Rise and Azami. So that did mean that this one is a little more consistent than the previous one. I do also want to mention that Street Wraith was played as a 1 to 4 of at the time, but the list I found, and I will put that in the description below, only played 1, which I find a little weird, since if the opponent goes to remove Labman with Wraith Cycle on the stack, we would lose. So I don't really recommend going into using the original combos, because as you see here, the combo today, it's really consolidated. You just Dread Return your Thassa's Oracle and you win. The less opportunity for opponent to interact, the better. Oracle's ability is also independent from the battlefield, so even if Oracle gets removed, we still win. We now know the cards in our deck, what they do, and how to combo and win. Because not all hands are blatantly obvious for all players, what are we looking for in an opening hand? Just like all decks and games of Magic, our opening hand is the most crucial, but in this deck, that is no exception. There are many factors to consider when looking in an opening hand, but here are some specific ones for all spells. We need a payoff. This means we need at least one of our enablers, either Balustrade Spy or our Undercity Informant. Remember, we can draw into them, but that's less likely since we only run 8 copies. Next, we need mana, and enough mana to cast our enabler, meaning 4. The common phrase is count to 4, which is cliche for all spells, but true. We are more likely to draw into mana sources than anything else, so keep that in mind if mulling. Luckily, with this deck, it's very mulligan friendly. You can theoretically mull to 4 cards and still win. The next part is not required, but does help, and that is interaction, such as hand hate, or even better, Pact of Negation, since Pact will not need an additional source of mana on top of the initial count to 4. Going forward with some sample hands, these are all randomly generated, but this is an example of a hand that has all that we would need. We have our payoff in Balustrade Spy. We can count to 4 by playing Turntimber as a land, playing Chrome Mox and printing Cabal Ritual, then tapping it to cast Dark Ritual. Adding to this, we can fight through hate such as Force of Will with Pact of Negation as backup. Let's run through some more sample hands just to get a better understanding. In this one, we do have our enabler, but we cannot really count to 4 since we don't have a reliable way to count to 4 as we lack black mana. I would mulligan this hand. The next hand, we have 2 enablers and 2 summoner packs to grab Elvish Spirit Guides, pitch our extra one, cast our Wild Cantor, sack it for black, then Cabal Ritual to combo off. This is a good hand, and if it is a mulligan from the last hand we just saw, we can tuck away our additional Informer. Just a few more sample hands to look over. Here we have both enablers. We can play Agadeem as a land, pitch both guides and use Petal to count to 4. Yeah, this is pretty good, I'd keep this. In this one we have our enabler and some interaction, but not a reliable amount of mana. This is most likely a mole, but if we are to take into consideration some other factors, for example if we're playing against a non-interactive deck such as Dredge, Burn, or anything like that, this could be a keep, but assuming we're playing blind, I'd go ahead and mulligan. So how does a deck like this side? We usually really want to stay on our game plan, but now that our opponent knows what we're up to, we need more protection to ensure that we can combo off. 99% of our opponents will bring in Grave Hate since that does hurt us, but most of that hate will be enchantment or artifact based, so we play disenchant type spells. We play 2 Foundation Breakers, which are great, and they can't be Force of Negation, and can be toured off Summoner's Pact. Then we can combo off from there. We play 3 Force of Vigors because free pitch spells in Legacy are pretty good, and 3 Nature Claim. 1 green to pop off is sometimes all we need. What about creatures that make comboing off a little difficult, such as Thalia? Well, we have 2 Slaughter Pacts to deal with that. And for further protection, especially against Bajuka Bog and Hand Hate, we play Leyline of Sanctity, and we have 3 of. Finally, to further protect our combo from spells, we play 2 Xantid Swarms. Not sure if your opponent brought in Force, Mindbait Trap, or Surgical to hate on you? That's okay. Xantid will just tell them to hold on while you win. Once again, this isn't so much based off the history of the deck, however, I do find this really interesting that previously the deck did play a Transform with Sideboard, but that was then and I really don't recommend it. However, I do want to share it as it is a very interesting idea. The deck would set out 8 of the Spies, 4 Narcomoebas, 1 Bridge, and a reanimation target with their win con to transform and Charbelcher. The deck would side in 4 Goblin Charbelchers, 2 empty Awareness to go in case that you can't find any Belchers, 4 Lion's Eye Diamonds, and 2 Tinderwalls to make mana, and spoils to find whatever we may need. The reason why we would change to a Charbelcher deck is to play 100% around Grave Hate. If your opponent wants to play Leyline of the Void or anything that could hate on you, that's fine, because you just hose down their cards by transforming your deck. The reason I really don't recommend this anymore is because our deck is designed to win with our main combo. So instead of changing our combo, we instead add support to enable us to combo through hate. Not to mention, the whole deck is a lot cheaper without Lion's Eye Diamonds, believe me. In conclusion, All Spells is a great and affordable deck for beginners and experts of Legacy. It will teach beginners in Legacy new interactions and reward expert players for their knowledge. The deck is kind of a meme for Legacy. Who doesn't like memes? Well, a good meme that is. If you like what you saw and want to request a deck or format, please do so below. Like and sub too so we know to keep making them. Till next time, you know what we like to say, stay dank.